and much to gain. Few people and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain.
Loss, we carry a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet beast.
And just to give you an update on our live coverage of the inauguration of Joe Biden, the president is still at. Former presidents were there as well. So once they leave there, they'll be going near the White House to an area called Freedom Plaza. It's at 15th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. It's about 2 blocks from the White House. And there he'll be
Hello and welcome to a special 2-hour inauguration edition of the Nomiki Show. I am Nomiki Konst. So we heard things today that we have never before heard in an inaugural address. A direct condemnation of extremism, specifically white supremacy and domestic terrorism, by the new president, President Joe Biden. And a remarkable statement that democracy depends on telling each other the truth, and that lying to win power or profits must be resisted. We heard celebration for the first time for the first woman to become vice president, and we even heard the music of Woody Guthrie, the progressive Dust Bowl balladeer, sung by Jennifer Lopez, Boricua from the Bronx. Inaugurations are symbolic events. They're very intentional. They're transitions. They're passing of the torch. So the symbols matter, and many of them were actually strong. The mere fact that we had a peaceful inauguration was a major statement.
Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity.
Just seeing Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, the Tom Hanks of American politics, standing there and speaking in a more or less normal way was actually a relief. I think all of us feel that. So I'm reluctant to judge harshly on this very first day, and maybe I'll afford him 24 hours before I go full force. Yet I couldn't help but feel there was a beat missing. Biden built his speech around a call for unity. This is the speech for the history books. Yet I feel as if this one was vague. I lost count of all the references to Lincoln and to the Civil War. Biden positioned himself as fighting again for the quote unquote union. Now, I'm 100% behind adding a few more free states, but frankly, I would like to have heard a bit more FDR along with all that Lincoln. Mario Cuomo described FDR as the president who lifted himself from his wheelchair to lift the nation from its knees in the Great Depression. That is the spirit we need to propel us right now. Unity is nice, cliche, but justice, yeah, it is better. Biden said we can't have peace without unity. Perhaps not. But we also can't have peace without justice, economic justice in particular, social justice, racial justice. And whether Biden can forge unity or not, it is essential that he quickly rebuilds our economy, not the way it was, but the way it has to be, more just, restructured, so we aren't living from crisis to crisis, so we aren't band-aiding the catastrophes that they have been caused by these conservative policies, these corporate policies, the strangleholds that our economic system, which was built off of slavery, has created. An economy with decent jobs, with living wages for everyone. An economy with universal health care, where people of color don't die in disproportionate numbers for lack of access or racism in the healthcare system. An economy where those at the top stop hoarding, and those, the rest of us, get enough to live full lives. An economy where the rights of workers are more important than the rights of corporations and oligarchs. If you listened closely, you heard some hints of this. Certainly for Biden to deliver on his call to end white supremacy, he will need to confront economic injustice. But none of this was stated loudly and clearly the way the calls for unity were repeated. This speech was the distillation of Joe Biden, of his middle-class background, of his life of public service politics, his remarkably long tenure at the seat of government, his deal-making, his Catholic faith, and his faith in family, honor, and civics, the way he learned it. In that sense, it was a very honest speech for Joe Biden, a true statement of what he feels. After these last 4 years, we should be glad for any truths from our leaders, but reestablishing truth and reuniting the divided are not ends in themselves. They are tasks along the way to a better country. They are the results of bold policies that are going to get us out of this ditch, which is what Biden said today that he wants. There was much that was beautiful, right? A lot that was beautiful in this inauguration. J-Lo, Lady Gaga, and Garth Brooks. And how could you have not hope for a country that produces 22-year-old Amanda Gorman, whose poem, which she apparently finished the night the Capitol was ransacked, blew the roof off of the place. And she said that on the steps of the very same Capitol. A special achievement since it was outdoors.
We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one.
That gives me hope. It was a good day, don't get me wrong. It was a relief. But our work transforms now. We must refuse to be the political equivalent of an abused partner. The fact that it was a relief to see Joe Biden today inaugurated rather than Donald Carnage Trump, that was good enough for today. But tomorrow, of course, the work begins, and I, for one, will insist that our ultimate goal is not just binding up our wounds, as Lincoln said it, but lifting this nation and its working people from their knees. We have an amazing show today. Arun Chaudhary is here. And then later on for the second hour, we have Marcus Ferrell and Natalie Shure. And when we come back, a man who has heard more than his share of inaugural addresses, the one and only Thomas Frank. But first, make sure to click that like and subscribe button. This is a special day, so join that chat, engage, ask us your questions. We'll be tapping in every once in a while to answer those super chats. So make sure to chime in, let us know your thoughts, your questions. Inauguration focus, that's what we're focusing on right now. So thank you for joining us. And if you're not already part of our book club, where's the book? I don't even have the book in front of me. Of course I don't. We have a new book club, you may have heard. You can join our book club at patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. You can join it by reading 1 book a month, 2 books a month, or 4 books a month. And right now we are in the midst of Thomas Paine and The Promise of America by Professor Harvey Kaye. And next week we're going to be reading The Plunket of Tammany Hall. If you want to know how politics works, that's the book you read, the good and the bad. We will be right back with Thomas Frank. Wow. Nothing says democracy like some cannon shooting. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. We are so honored to have the one and only Thomas Frank. He is the author of The People Know, A Brief History of Anti-Populism. Every time I say that, I say it in a different way. And of course, he is the author of Listen Liberal, or Whatever Happened to the Party of the People, and What's the Matter with Kansas, How Conservatives Won the Heart of America. So many books. There's many. Go check out his website. That's how you can find it, at tcfrank.com. You can go order all of his past books and maybe we should do a special book club devoted to Thomas Frank books, like 3 months of Thomas Frank books. We'll just have to call you every day. That's how we do this.
No, mate, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I don't know if that's a very good idea. I mean, it would be flattering. Can you imagine someone doing that, reading all my books?
I can. Actually, it would be exciting. There we go. We got one of them up on screen right now.
So, well, that's the new one. And yep. I'm very proud of that one. And if you go to the, if you click on that where it says visit the gallery of anti-populism, it's got this, that sort of round thing at the top.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
It's got these great illustrations.
Oh.
Yeah. From political cartoons from the 1890s. That's populism. That's how that's how the sort of ruling elite of them. Don't you love it? It's got capital. Capital is on the run.
Ruin, anarchy, murder.
That's popular.
Guns. It's
the French Revolution. He's got on one of those sans culottes, a liberty cap.
That's amazing. I love how they always make the little man out to be so powerful. It's like when you watch Fox News, they're like, Antifa's coming after us.
Yeah. Now this is supposed to be William McKinley and Miss Gold Standard. He's escorting Miss Gold Standard through this anarchy slum. And if you go over to the right a little ways through, it's called Populist Alley. He's and these are various populist politicians, and he's like, they're really dangerous, right?
But the other one, Doris.
It's good thing the cops are there. And so I love that about the 1890s. All of these things that we're fighting with today were just right in your face. It's like cops exist to protect rich people from the poor.
Of course.
Right? Everyone knows that.
That's
what cops are for. Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Listen, I mean, we saw what happened with the Capitol Police and the insurrection, and we saw what happened when they were all protecting their Chase Banks.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
We're just starting to.
What I'm saying is
people are like all astonished that that's what the police do.
I love it. They're like, I can't believe they were so hesitant to react to their friends who were out of their uniforms.
Isn't that just the nuttiest damn thing? So I haven't seen you in a while. A lot of things have happened.
You guys tell me about it. Are you working on a book about the last 2 weeks?
The problem for me is I write these essays. I mean, you wouldn't know that I still write long essays because they're only published in other countries. But I wrote this.
How do you know? No, it's fine. I am the president of the Thomas Frank Book Club.
All right. Well, I'll make sure you see it. But it's going to be published in French. I don't have anyone to write for in English anymore. In America, I should say. Are
you publishing it in French, or is it translated?
It's I didn't write it in French. I mean, I can read French, but I can't. I mean, I can't write it worth a damn. But
j'ai oublié mon français.
Anyhow, it's I had to keep going back and revising it because all these crazy things would happen. So it started as an essay about the election and why Trump did as well as he did. He did surprisingly well. I mean, it's all forgotten now because he's totally ruined whatever standing he had, with the public just here in the last couple weeks. But he did surprisingly well, and he did particularly surprisingly well among Latino voters in certain parts of the country. There were all of these. Yeah, there were all of these weird results to come out of the election. And so I started off writing about that. And also he won, or I should say Biden won. Biden won the county that I grew up in. Very wealthy, white collar part of Kansas City. And has always been Republican. When I was a kid, it was the most Republican county, or one of the most Republican counties in America. Very, very affluent, white collar.
Well, isn't that kind of the secret of the election is that, I mean, they don't want to say it out loud. So when Biden would be like, I'm trying to win over, certain
rich
people. He was rich white men, the educated rich white men.
He did. I'm here to tell you, he succeeded. So he won Johnson County, Kansas, which is like, this place had not voted for a Democrat since Woodrow Wilson. Okay. They went for Goldwater over Lyndon Johnson. That's the kind of people these were. I grew up among them.
Yeah.
The Republicans dominated this area. They won every office. The governors of Kansas would come from this county, and Biden just won it.
And that was the Kasich. I mean, people were wondering, like, why did he bring in Kasich? And it was like one of those weird things where, like, this feels really gross. Might work in this weird strategy that they're trying to build.
It did work. The thing is that I don't know if I want to be part of that Democratic Party.
I agree 100%.
I don't know if I want to be part. I don't want having to do with either one of them anymore. they're so dreadful.
Oh, no.
Anyhow,
please don't tell me you're joining the Patriot Party.
No. Oh, come on.
Okay.
So I write this essay, a long, thoughtful essay about the election and about the last 4 years. To try to understand how Trump did this, how he avoided being just crushingly defeated. It's fascinating. It's a good question. I mean, I thought the man was, he bungled the pandemic, he bungled Black Lives Matter. The guy is just absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
And he did quite well on election day. I was totally surprised.
It was closer.
Totally, of course I wasn't totally surprised. So I go and write this essay, and when you want to do a really good job on one of these, you do a lot of research, you do a lot of revising, you do a lot of work. I get it done, and then they ransack the Capitol. There's this riot, this mob of people ransacks the Capitol. What the hell? And so I have to go back into the essay and rewrite it completely. It drives me crazy. Just speaking as an author, it's impossible to keep up with this, with Trump's idiocy, but now he's gone. So everything's going to slow down now. And
that's really it. Like people, I mean, there's obviously the crises are not going away. And we not only have to amend the core issues, the root problems that existed before Trumpism, and were exacerbated under Trumpism. But there was this, I don't think really, maybe it's just us in the media. The pace was so nonstop. I mean, it's hard. I was going back through photos to kind of think about the last 4 years. And I remember the first year, I think I went to I covered maybe 50 or 60 protests. I'm not kidding. I'm like, oh, there's that protest. And you start to add it up. You go, every day there were a few weeks where it was like 4 a week. Yeah. And you just felt exhausted.
That's funny. I have kids. I don't go to protests anymore.
That's true.
I got to be responsible. That was a long time ago when I used to do things like that. But it was just one outrage after another, and whatever the new outrage would eclipse, the last outrage. It was difficult to write thoughtful essays about Trump. And so what you say about I don't know when. I'll never write a history of the Trump years because I'm done writing about politics. But
wait, what?
Yeah, I thought I told you that. Yeah.
Hang on. Awkward silence. You're done writing about politics?
Oh,
I thought you were going to say,
I'm
done writing about Trump.
Yeah.
What are you going to write about now?
Really interesting. And it's going to take some time to write a proper history of the last 4 years because there's so many strands. It's not just Trump. I mean, in some ways, Trump is the least interesting. Look, I know you don't want me to curse on your show. Trump is just an asshole,
That's not bad.
Okay.
Break the rules.
I'm allowed to say that. He's just an asshole and, doing one asshole thing after another. But it's the story of the Trump years is not just him. It's also the story of anti-Trumpism, which is, I think, equally, well, we don't know yet if it's going to turn out to be equally as momentous. I mean, Trump himself, Trump might be the end of something, and it might also be, look, what I've said all along is that this is just the latest stage in something that's been building and building and building. And I think it's probably going to continue, but damn, did this guy disgrace himself here the last few weeks, got himself impeached twice.
And that's kind of the one thing where I know folks are angry about censorship for different reasons. I mean, my thought is, if you weren't angry about censorship before Trump got banned, and I'm going after the left before, I'm very curious about why you're suddenly taking that on. But with that being said, this is how it's growing. It's just as if they, when they shut down forums, right, where people learn how to make bombs. They shut down forums where women learn how to harm themselves. People learn how to harm themselves. Teenage girls, for instance, they shut down like anorexia. They do this all the time.
I don't know what are you talking about?
So what I'm saying is
who is they, and what are the forums? Where are
different platforms will shut down forums whether it's blogs or Reddit, there are always these provisions in place by companies to prevent harm, whether it's inciting, organizing, organized crime, just in general, whether it's teenage girls who are likely to do certain things more vulnerable to certain harmful activities, right? This happens, and this has been going on for years, right? And we haven't had, for at least societally, we haven't had this problem. But why I think, I am personally not opposed to shutting down these hateful accounts. First off, just from the perspective of these are private companies, they have the right to do so, blah, blah, blah. It's that this is how this Trumpism is going to continue. Right now, the things that they're throwing against the wall are Josh Hawley and using these platforms to organize. And that's obviously how this was facilitated. Yeah. I have personal experiences with people that hang out in these spaces have been completely brainwashed, just as Fox News has brainwashed an entire generation or two of people into believing certain things. And I think, when Biden brought up facts and truth, now he might have a different type of truth than I do.
Do you know how dangerous this is? I mean, look, we're all against error. I just wrote a book about how people abuse the word populism, right? And do you think that stopped them? The fact that I just crushingly refuted, their worldview. Do you think that mattered? No. I mean, when do I get to tell people to stop being wrong? When do I get to go to the Washington Post and say, sorry, I'm going to go through your stories and assign them Pinocchios?
Exactly. You should.
It's
start a blog.
But it wouldn't make any difference. This is just another weapon of the powerful. So when I was starting out, the Baffler was, we were part of that sort of desktop publishing revolution in the 1980s, where, the whole idea is you could do layout. You didn't have to have expensive machinery anymore. And all of a sudden, you could, they called them zines. All of a sudden anybody could put out their own magazine. And it didn't take a whole lot of money and a whole lot of investment. And that's my entire career. And I made it from there up to being a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. And now I'm on my way back down. The funny thing is that the saying that we used to have back then is freedom of the press. It only matters if you own one, right? If you own the damn thing. That's right. We're going to very soon be back at that point.
No, I mean, it's a very, there's concerns obviously that we have in terms of the far right and how it's going to now be the mainstream Republican Party is going to shift more towards neoliberalism. And my question is who's really going to be the enemy?
They
now?
Are the ones who brought us neoliberalism.
Exactly. So are we going to be the enemies now? I mean, they did so much to take on Bernie.
Man. Come on now. I just want to remind you of something, that the people who are always censored in this country is the left.
Of course.
Just remember your history of the 40s and 50s, right? This is the last great censorship era in America. This is the last great time for shutting people down and getting people fired and all that stuff. And it's people on the left. That's who is always in the crosshairs. And the previous period before that would be in right after World War I. And again, it was the IWW, stuff like, they put their leaders in jail, for God's sakes. Yeah. It's always people on the left. This is, look, that's just how this thing unfolds. It always will unfold that way. And celebrating censorship because you think it's suddenly it's on your side is, oh my God, is that foolish? That is so deluded. That is just, what a mistake. And this is going to come back to haunt people so, so badly. And to resume what I was saying, it's like I've spent my entire career I've never, my thoughts, my writing has never been authorized. It's basically, I remember one time when I first moved to Washington, D.C., What's the Matter with Kansas came out like right after I moved here. I moved here from Chicago. And I'd done my own magazine, right? And What's the Matter with Kansas, I was a complete outsider. And it was a huge surprise to everyone that it was a bestseller. And I remember I went on the radio and they had some centrist Democrat from a centrist Democrat think tank to argue with me. And he said that he had this really funny way of describing me. He said that it didn't really matter what I said because I was outside the conversation. And that was it was kind of beautiful because it was also true. I was outside the conversation. I've always been outside the conversation.
And it doesn't matter what you say.
It really doesn't matter what I say.
You said what I say. It doesn't matter.
If the centrist Democratic think tank says 2 + 2 = 5, and I'm like, no, that's not right. It doesn't matter. I'm outside the conversation. And that's the logic that I'm trying to describe here. And that's where all of us are. And this is, by the way, a very good time. The last couple of years have been a really good time to be outside the conversation because of things like this. You and I are, here you are, we're doing the Nomiki podcast. And next, after we're done with this, we're going to do the TCF podcast. And you're going to be my guest on that. And okay, that's a joke, but
it's the book podcast. Let's just
yeah, but I think the what is going to happen is that is they're going to rein this in somehow. That this whole world where anything goes and where people who are outside the authorized, conversation have an equal platform. That's got to go. People are realizing now that's got to be stopped. That leads to Bernie Sanders. Well, it also leads to Trump. It leads to all, and I think that the time is going to come when that is just.
And so my take on this is, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this aspect of the inaugural speech. I feel like, and actually the speech he gave a couple days ago, Biden is going to have to respond to this moment. He doesn't really have a choice. There are major problems that he has to solve immediately. The housing crisis, tens of millions of people.
No, I'm
potentially
psyched.
getting evicted.
I by the way, I woke up. I was very happy this morning. I'm in a terrible mood now. Thanks, Nomiki. But
I have that effect on people. It's really
I was in a great mood when I woke up this morning because the world still existed and that asshole is gone.
I was happy.
It made me so happy. He's gone. He got in his helicopter and he left. Oh, I was just
we'll get to that in a second because we have a great clip that I'd love to get your reaction on. But what's interesting is because he has to respond to this moment, I feel like it's going to revive or restructure neoliberalism in a way that they're going to have to deal with some of these economic problems, and it's going to pull power away.
No, they're not. They're not going to. I mean,
no, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying if we don't, the economy is going to, spiral out of control. The fact that he doesn't care about deficits is
that's very helpful. You're right, and there's all sorts of very healthy signs coming out of the Biden team, and I'm really psyched about it. The massive stimulus program that they it's like what, three times? It's 3 times the size of Obama's or something.
Yes.
It's like,
and he said it too.
That's kind of awesome,
We made the mistake under Obama. He just said the quiet thing out loud.
Did he say that?
Did he say that? He was like, we made some.
Wow, because that's like.
So
I liked Obama, voted for him twice, and was very enthusiastic about him once upon a time. But Obama's legacy is this kind of stumbling block for any, for liberalism to move ahead, because we can't imagine that. You have to understand, you have to be able to imagine that Obama screwed things up, that Obama made mistakes if you want to tackle what's wrong with this country. And as long as Democrats regard Obama as a saint, they're not going to be able to do that. It's a huge mental problem. And I'm glad that Biden has actually said something like that. That's wonderful. He also understands, and this is there's 2 things about Biden. You can go either way with Biden. Either he's going to be a great president or he's going to be Obama's 3rd term. And right now I'm hoping for we all should be hoping that he's a great president. If that guy, if Biden, comes out swinging and gets half of the population vaccinated in his first 100 days, they know that I'm on your program. Look at this.
They're calling in. Just answer right now.
They know that it's just, and I can't turn it off. It's the landline. It's my idiot.
They're already calling for donations. Hi, this is the DNC. We're calling you to see if you'd like to contribute to the re-elect Joe Biden fund. The Biden re-election. Okay, so Thomas, before we wrap up,
if he comes out swinging, are we done already? I haven't even. I know.
Wait. I have an idea.
If he comes out swinging, he gets half the population vaccinated in the first 100 days. This country will love that man forever. Right. And being a great president is probably easier for Joe Biden than it has been for a Democrat for a long time, because he's really got the job cut out for him. We know exactly what he has to do. Yeah. Get the vaccine out there, spend a whole lot of money, get the economy roaring again. This country will love you forever if you do those things, Mr. Joe Biden. I want to see him do it. But on the other hand, maybe he'll be another Obama. And, like Obama's third, you remember towards the end of Obama's second term, he just didn't do anything. He didn't even try. It was so maddening.
Yeah. It's like de Blasio right now.
I'm sorry. Who is that?
Yes, the mayor of New York, de Blasio.
Oh, I don't know who that is. I know who the mayor of Kansas City is, but
you're so genuine. Look at you. You are so genuine. My perspective on this is, they're going to have to move they're going to have to lean into solving these economic problems and these health problems, right? And institutional racism, because they don't have a choice. But with that, I'm concerned that it's going to seize the energy away from a very vibrant, progressive movement that, I don't think that the squad's going to go away, or people aren't going to be running for different positions across the country. But, it might pull some of the resistance people who might be on our side now back towards the center. That's just my thought.
Look, they won. They
won.
He beat Bernie. He did. It wasn't entirely fair, but these things never are. And we have to live with that, and that's just the way it is. Now, on the plus side, Bernie is looking really. Bernie's going to be the chairman of his committee, and that's fantastic. Yeah, and that's wonderful. And like you just said, there's a lot of good progressive ideas among Biden's economic team. The rest of his administration is really underwhelming, really not impressive. His economic team is saying some pretty good things. I'm very, very pleased about that.
I'm surprised that they've got people from the Roosevelt Institute on there. It's some very progressive folks. Thomas, would you be down to come back a little bit later if you have some time?
Today,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to tell you, I have another podcast.
I should have never said this on air. Can we cut this, guys? This is why you don't throw things out there last minute.
So embarrassing.
Reject it. All right. A through F.
We can do it tomorrow or something. We barely even got started here.
I know we didn't. This is what happens with our show.
You don't even know what are you going to do with the rest of your life, Mr. Frank? You're not going to write about politics anymore. What are you going to do? I bet you're curious. Are you curious, Nomi?
I'm going to leave it as a teaser, so folks find out the next time you're on. See, Thomas, you gotta tease the audience, gotta hook them in.
Yeah. So I liked my tease. I just wrote one of the best essays I've ever written in my life, and you're never going to get to read it because it's only in French. How about that, huh?
I did study French. That was my official language.
No, it'll come out in English. It's just, and it's not the language that ruined it. It's not the translation that ruined it. It's Trump that ruined it. I wrote a great essay, and then this asshole had to send a mob down to attack the Capitol, and I had to completely rewrite the essay. Ooh, it burns me up.
All those analogies you had about storming the left needing to storm the Bastille.
Forget what this means for the country. It wrecked my essay.
Thomas, always a pleasure. Quick, before we wrap up, A through F, what would you give the inaugural speech?
Oh my God, it was dreadful. Are you kidding me? That was awful.
So what is that?
A D.
A D. I thought so. That's fair. I'm gonna say a C- because he said white supremacy, and I felt like that was bold.
Yeah. He's putting George Wallace in his place. Actually, what's funny about that is, like, he talked about systemic racism. Good thing to talk about, right? This is the author of the 94 crime bill. It's like, Joe, go look in the mirror, Well, if he feels, he was never called on the carpet for it during the campaign, or very, very slightly, but maybe he feels some residual guilt about it, and that will make him act on it. I certainly hope he does.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. And maybe Kamala feels the same way about her criminal justice.
Yeah.
Anywho, Thomas Frank, always a pleasure. Go check out his French translated Out of Touch article.
Yeah, it'll be in Le Monde Diplomatique. It'll be out. It'll be out on the internet in the next couple of days. Le Monde Diplomatique, French newspaper. Yep.
Use that Google Translate and your 7th grade French.
Exactly.
All right. À tout à l'heure.
All right. See you later. A bientôt, right? Is that what they say? Something like that.
Wait.
Whatever.
Oh, wait. Okay. We'll be right back with Arun Chaudhary and Marcus Ferrell. Hello, welcome back to the Nomiki Show. I am so excited to have our panel. We have Arun Chaudhary live from Berlin. What? Who was that?
I'm saying Marcus. I didn't I saw the email. I didn't realize it was Marcus.
It's Black Jesus.
It's Black Jesus. It's Black Jesus and Black Santa.
All right, these guys need no introductions to each other. This is
Negro
just
Jesus.
Do you guys get a room? Get a room, okay?
I want to talk. What's up, Arun? What's up, man? I'm sorry. That's my dude. Naomi, that's my dude right there, man. I love that guy.
All right. Let me do proper introductions, guys.
Okay.
We have Arun Chaudhary, who is drinking out of, I don't know what he's drinking, but he's drinking at this point, out of his Labor cup, because it's later in Berlin. It's pretty late. Watching our inauguration. Arun Chaudhary is, of course, a political filmmaker. He is the former official White House videographer under Barack Hussein Obama, and he was the creative director for Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. And Marcus Ferrell is the former outreach director with Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. And he's the former chief of staff to the New Georgia Project and the host of clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. Love the show. Watched it yesterday. I don't watch a lot of shows every day. I check, do little bits and pieces. But if you don't watch the show, it is effing amazing.
Thank you.
Seal of approval. Okay, so much juiciness today. I really want to show this video of the Trump family. They're like so sad. It's just so sad for them to like not be, insulated from the people. Can we show the clip of Don J? Don Jr. I can't even look at it with a straight face.
No, I mean, it's good footage. It's very real. I mean, it's just for filmmaking perspective. You know what I mean? Like, these are real faces. This is humanity.
I love it. Kimberly Guilfoyle's like, my mascara. Are they going to take me back at Fox News? I have to go to OAN now.
But Daddy said it was going to be forever. He said it was going to be forever and ever and ever. That's what Daddy said. Daddy lied to me.
I mean, we're all laughing, and that's correct. We should be laughing. But there is sort of a strangeness to the fact that they haven't come to terms with this, because I think we tend to think of the Trump family as being somehow cleverer, more of the fox, and then all of the people who actually end up storming the Capitol are the hens, and we feel sorry for them.
Right.
But actually, it's like sometimes you get high in your own supply, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I think when the Trump administration started, I didn't actually think that they were one of their supporters. Like, I didn't think that they were Q, like the Q people. But what's been revealed is they're absolutely the Q people. They always were. Kimberly Guilfoyle, even though she used to be married to Gavin Newsom, I'm sure she's going wherever the wind's blowing. But They always were. They were the ones who went to Africa and went on these safaris and slaughtered beautiful animals because they just needed to exercise their manhood. And it's offensive. I mean, they're like the worst people in this country.
They believe their own bullshit. And I mean, like the great Coach Green said for the Vikings, they are who we thought they were, right?
Right.
And I mean that in the literal sense of these guys. If you don't think they were a part of the sedition that happened at this point in some way or form, then that reaction right there shows you just how disappointed that their grand overall scheme was, right? You know, they were a couple of tax brackets away from showing up to that Capitol themselves. So as far as I'm concerned, like I mean, you know, white supremacy is going to white supremacy. And if you just think that they didn't say the N-word out loud and they aren't white supremacists, that you got them completely twisted. They are mad right now at people of color. They are mad at black people for putting their behinds on a jet out of town and telling daddy you can't come back. And it might even be worse. So it's a beautiful thing to watch. It should not be surprising if you realize that this is their ethos.
And you have a lot of New Yorkers as your fans. And, you know, New Yorkers know who Donald Trump is and know how much he had to contort and twist the truth to get at the Central Park Five. We as a country know how far and what a loose relationship he had without the truth to lead the birtherism charge after it was popular and profitable. Like, he kept going with it. So, I mean, at some point, shame on us.
Thanks to Sidney Blumenthal. Let's just give credit where credit is due. That was invented by Sidney Blumenthal. And of course, Trump was like, ooh, music to my ears. Let me grift off of that. So I want to play this clip of CNN, who has made a lot of money off of being the anti-Trump network. You know, he's been great for media. I'm sure that many media CEOs are mourning the loss of the Trump administration and hoping that Joe Biden decides to go off script a few times because at least he'll give something to talk about. I don't know. But sometimes they show their true colors, and let's play the clip real quick.
You continue to hear throughout these scenes is surreal, perhaps surreally appropriate.
What's wrong with Gloria?
Let's just watch in silence as this Air Force One takes off and the Trump family leaves Washington, leaves the seat of power.
Yes, it was my way.
And I feel like the Italian neo-realists are really there.
And inside the church, the Biden family, you can...
That wasn't jet fuel you smelled. That was gas.
Arun, you're a filmmaker. This is poetic, is it not?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have a lot of fun with this stuff and things seem like, you know, amateurish or over the top. But actually, it's sort of having the courage to go for like big drama does pay off often and does reach a lot of people and does, even if it's hitting us in a different way, make us pay attention. And I mean, this is a pure Trump moment. I'm not sure how many of his rallies that you watch in their entirety or if, you know, you see the run up and all those things, but like there's a great soundtrack. People have a good time. Like, you know, of all the horrible things that Donald Trump has done, the way he keeps cementing his power is through these rallies and is through the energy that he makes at them. And he doesn't have the crowds now, but he still does have the poetry, as you call it.
I think that just like so many other times where at a Trump rally, some music artist said, nah, bro, you can't use this. You can't use my music, right? He has to be the most banned person ever when it comes down to rally music in the history of presidencies, right? But just like that, I don't think Frank Sinatra would have, old Blue Eyes probably would have been rolling over in his grave, proverbially, when it comes down to like just literally looking at this guy fly away. the better song probably would have been like something very ratchet, you know what I mean? Like something like nothing qualities, you know, just bad mixing. Because I mean, just like the White House was left in trash, this guy left America in trash, right? So the better song would have been like Hitler's Anthem or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Kid Rock's version of it.
That's right.
I mean, listen, Frank Sinatra, if anything, he would have been not a fan of Giuliani. We'll just leave that there.
That's right. Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about Biden. Go around. Thoughts on the inaugural speech, hits, misses, overall score. Let's go. Marcus, you're ready to go.
Hits. The hits were, you know, white supremacy to me, right? The hits were white supremacy. The hits were just a public conversation about toxic whiteness, right? To me, he gets an overall B. Unlike your last guest, I'm going to give him a B because the one thing that candidates, presidents, including Obama, have refused to say, but has been this lingering thing over the essence of America, has been their treatment of Black and brown folks in this country and their ignoring of white supremacy. So for Joe Biden to just say the word, we have to end white supremacy in an inaugural address, he might be even digging his own ditch because, you know, he doesn't even understand how deep white supremacy goes, including the Democratic Party. So I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way, like there is white supremacy in almost everything. It's just different levels of it. So first, low bar. He's coming after Trump. So all he had to do was just say, I'm here. And that would have been an A plus on normal days, right? Second, like it did feel really good having a sense of normalcy, and even though it's like Class C, I'm a Southern Black Baptist fan of preachy type of speeches, so you know I didn't get that, but even just the moderate, reserved tone that he had of bringing folks together, even though I don't believe in that. And he mentioned white supremacy. He gets the B's for me.
What was interesting about that is he talked about unity, and yet he ignored things that he may have thought were divisive, like economic justice, labor, more progressive economic policies, which I never thought was divisive. And I think it actually is a way to bring folks in. But I think he's so allergic to like the socialist terms that he just didn't want to even touch it. Even though last week in his other speech, not the one that's going to be in the history books, but the speech about his plans, he did kind of lean into that a little bit more. But what you just said, Marcus, was what stood out to me. All this talk about unity, but then he uses the terms white supremacy, which are trigger words for even the folks who saw the insurrection and didn't like it on the Republican Party. So it was an interesting kind of rhetorical strategy there, and I'm sure there were a lot of hands in that speech, and maybe they didn't always agree with each other. But Arun, what was your take?
I appreciate that he has, both through some of his economic team statements as well as this speech, left the door open to being a progressive president in some really important ways, acknowledging white supremacy, acknowledging that big investments are going to have to be made. I would have liked to see more of that in this speech, but I'm going to give the speech a C, because it just, I'm going to give him the exact same grade I gave for all of the Biden crucial debate stage things. Like, Biden has not shown a lot of rhetorical courage. He doesn't take on hard things. He just tries to get through the speech. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of people who are saying, does Joe Biden still have what it takes? The answer should be some blockbuster stuff and not necessarily just trying to get through 20 minutes without getting in trouble, which is honestly sort of what the rhetoric level felt like this. We have to make difficult choices, do hard stuff. Like it was, colloquial to the point of, not reaching a preacher like Marcus wishes it was. It didn't even reach, 3 levels below that. This was a Senate floor speech about a non-important topic.
Right. In fact, the preacher, and I apologize, I don't have his name off the top of my head, who spoke afterwards, who's a lifelong friend of Joe Biden. I was like, where was that energy? Where was that energy?
That's right. That's right.
My take on, I feel like it was a sigh. He was like, just had 20 minutes.
That's fair.
Yeah.
To just get through Trump, take a breath. But I don't know if it's not in him or if his advisors are not distilling this for him, but I don't feel like he's living history. I feel like he's living the moment. I feel like he's living the politics of the moment, the media of the moment, but he's not living history. When you enter the presidency, when you win the presidency, every single move you make has to be interpreted through the lens of 50, 100 years from now, which I don't even know if Obama was doing. I mean, Arun, you worked in the Obama campaign. You were in office. The White House. You were there to watch it.
I think Obama knew what those moments were, and they're not even speeches that we necessarily think about, but people in 100 years will. And I think as kind of a good writer, Obama knows that. You know, the speech he gave in Cairo, for instance, or like the race speech response. You know, more than sometimes the inaugurations or the State of the Unions, where you are maybe trying to sort of set a tone or get through. But I agree that we need to see this as a historical moment. If we're going to stand up in a historical way as Americans, we need to sort of have these triggers in our brain hit that remind us of coming together and doing things. And FDR saying some stirring things during World War II, and other presidents who've asked us all to do something together because we're going to have to do this together. And I think there's a rhetorical way to take it where it doesn't matter if you voted for him or not, if you're grumbling about it or not, if you're excited about getting involved, or if you're like, guys, I got to help this jerk. Either way is fine, but to set that, you need a higher rhetoric. I think it's missing.
Right. If I may, Nomi,
of course, yeah.
I got to go back to just the white supremacy thing again, because even during FDR days, white supremacy was wreaking havoc on our neighborhoods. Right. Yep. If Tulsa happened today, white supremacy would be like would the president acknowledge white supremacy? Right. When Obama made his race speech, he didn't say white supremacy. And I mean, for a populist,
could he? I'm sorry, Marcus, but could Obama say white supremacy?
No, he couldn't, but he could have. I mean, he was the president and he was black, sure enough. Right? Like, I mean, we know he couldn't because, you know, even moderate Democrats would have been like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, pause, slow down, you're moving too fast. But here's the thing, like, in order to end white supremacy, white people have to be on board, and to keep it 1,000. Biden might get away with doing stuff that Obama just couldn't do when it comes down to ending that sin because he's a white man. So I'm going to give him props, and I can only imagine, Arun, you know this. I can only imagine how many people that were writing this speech, knowing it's going to be in the annals of history, knowing it's going to be at his presidential library somewhere encased in a gold case, the original speech or iPad or wherever they wrote it on. Right, like white supremacy was in that. Right, and I don't. Yeah. We cannot like move too far past that, because all of what happened at the Capitol basically was because black people in Georgia voted.
I bet you there was a discussion about that exact part of the speech. I bet you there was a vote, and I don't want to venture exactly what the vote was, but I bet it wasn't overwhelming. I bet it was.
It was one person. It was the black person in the room.
I bet it was a real vote.
And Joe Biden probably was like, all right. He does sometimes have these moments, right, where he, you know.
He's a stubborn old man, Nomi. Like, so stubborn can be for the bad and stubborn can be for good, right? Like, and we don't know. What I'm starting to see is like post 70, Biden is a tad bit, 75, Biden is a tad bit more progressive than Obama was. We could just see from how he communicates his messages. Am I saying that he's not going to let Wall Street just come in there and play jump rope or hopscotch pretty soon? I don't know. I mean, but I know this: you can't tackle white supremacy without tackling the ills of Wall Street. They go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Historically hand in hand. That's where the slaves, right outside of Wall Street, into the port of New York, where the slave ships arrived from the Caribbean. New York City itself still legalized slavery, as we know. There's going to be a lot on his agenda that he's going to have to deal with. And this question I'm framing in a very specific way, because there's stuff that he's going to have to deal with that I personally feel, let him deal with it. We pressure him on pressure points to make sure he goes left enough. But outside of that, whether it's vaccine distribution or rent relief or access to healthcare. I'm not saying Medicare for all yet. I'm saying access to healthcare because people just don't have proper access to healthcare right now, or medical debt or student debt, whatever these issues are that he's already said he's going to deal with. Separate from that, what do you think? Big, we know that the first 100 days, that the first year are the moment to push something through in administration. Obamacare is the perfect example because Republicans will, of course, do all they can to not let anything else pass through. And also, we have the Senate and the House right now and on shaky grounds. What do you guys think should be the progressive item that we push hard on in this first year?
Stacking the courts.
Why is that?
Because we won't be able to do anything with the current court system as it is right now, and we got to play the same hardball games that the Republicans do. I mean, if we don't, you don't match authoritarianism with I'm gonna work with the former authoritarians, right? Like you just can't do that. You have to actually like do something. So we can't get any progressive policy passed whatsoever the way it is right now, even though we have all three, basically two of the branches of government. We're gonna if we plan on ever seeing Medicare for all, if we plan on seeing even police reform, then we're gonna need a Supreme Court that doesn't have Clarence Thomas as a big portion of the vote, right? We're gonna have to. I mean, and I know that's kind of sacrilegious, but I mean, why not have power and then actually utilize it?
No, I was going to give
crazy
the wrong
idea
answer, which was that we should do healthcare again. But actually, I want to absolutely just now say what Marcus said, because we need Democrats to show that they are willing to wield power. I think we've talked about this before. They have to show that they're willing to wield power. I think it's getting rid of the filibuster. I think it's DC statehood. I think it's a whole list of things just to show that they're serious. And it's not even to show the American people they're serious, also show Republicans they're serious. Our opponents in the Senate and in the House do not respect us because we don't wield power. They actually just don't. They're like not scared.
So let's talk about power just for a second before we wrap, because I think we say things like wielding power, but what does that look like? I mean, how I feel like Joe Manchin's going to wield his power. He's going to be like, oh, hello, I'm the most important person in all of America right now. So you come and kiss my ring but what is the strategy for the movement to push certain Democrats so that they wield their power? Is it through Chuck Schumer? Is it through Nancy Pelosi? I mean, I feel like they know how to wield power on progressives, but not on Republicans. So how do we do that?
It has to be. I mean, I got one. It has to be being able to, even though we know that we have a Senate and we have control in the House, like the Progressive Caucus is going to have to be like, nah, too much Wall Street, right? If our dear sister Cori Bush shows up in Congress, with some of them St. Louis ribs and be like, y'all ain't getting one unless y'all do X, Y, and Z, then that's what we need to do. Wielding power is being unabashedly about the people who voted you in. Right. And what I mean by that is if a random barber from the state of Georgia decides to say, hey, you know what, Chuck Schumer, you need to do this, that, and the other, and he's ignored, then it needs to be a thing, because 2 years from now, we got this thing called an election again. And, it's time for you to prove all that crap y'all said y'all were going to do. Right. And I heard a lot of promises being a Fulton County, Georgia voter. Right. A whole lot of them. I want to see some of them done. So just do what you say. Right. Stack the courts, turn DC into a state like Arun said. How about even putting more black judges on the federal courts around the nation. Right. Like just real power, because that way, because, the next time the next Trump is going to be a genius. And we have to avoid that. And they're going to do everything they can to stop people of color from voting around the nation. This vote fight is not over. 71 million people voted for a guy who doesn't believe that votes are real, right? So what do? We actually have to do things in a courtroom to make sure that these things don't ever happen again, even if it comes all the way down to constitutional amendments.
Arun, you are really interested in power. Every time you come on the show, you talk about wielding power. It's almost overwhelming at this point, right?
My inner autocrat is.
What can you do? We'll do a tease in a second about that, because it's very related to a book that we're doing. But how do you? I mean, there's so much that the progressive movement, which is still very young, right, has to learn about power. And it's young because we haven't had power. Neoliberals have driven us out as much as they can over the last 40 years. And part of that is by allowing the complete wrecking of unions and working hand in hand with conservatives in doing so, and pulling out of states and letting unions be purged from the Democratic Party while the Koch brothers run into every state and organize from the local level to take unions on. So we haven't had a lot of practice in power wielding. So there's almost too much right now. We're drowning.
I mean, I think there's two different things. There's the Democratic Party wielding power on behalf of the people and not behalf of sort of a collegiality that I think too many of our older members of Congress have, where actually getting along with their longtime friends on the other side of the aisle is more important than getting along with the more troublesome wings of their party. But that's going to start with the troublesome wings of the party demanding new leadership. And I hate to carve out a dangerous third way between the people who wanted to force the vote and the people who thought that those people were horrible, which is certainly all we heard about on Twitter for a while. But I do think there is a balance between going along to get along, because you need to do certain things to make sure that your caucus gets things done. But also you have to withhold something if you want something. You can't be at that baseline of the bare minimum that people expect from you and then just build off of that. You have to do less than that. You have to be harder. You have to be more expensive. And so we do have to see our progressive colleagues dip into their labor backgrounds and start to do some clever things. Not every successful labor tactic is a huge strike where you refuse to do things. Some of them are very clever and slowdowns. And Elizabeth Gurley Flynn had the thing where you follow every rule to the letter. Can you imagine if, how mad Nancy Pelosi would be if you were slowing things down by just following the rules that are supposed to work in the House? I think we have to sort of bring some of those kind of workplace tactics into the workplace of the House of Representatives.
I'm so happy you brought that up, because one of the most genius responses I heard to the force the vote strategy to the Medicare for All fight was from Marcus Ferrell in regards to reparations. So I don't want to have Marcus on without the opportunity. Every single time you come on, I want you to just keep reiterating it, because you might hit a new audience. I think it's genius. And I think that everyone, especially white people, should listen and champion this idea. So the floor is yours, Marcus.
Hey, listen, we need to have I call it #Rep1. Reparations. If y'all want to force the vote, which I still think was a bad idea, because you're going to put black and brown women of color at political peril just to make sure that Medicare for all, without any kind of equity for black folks in the medical system, right, happen. Instead of doing that, we push reparations. We push a reparations package, which has already been written. We don't really need HR 40, but you know what? If y'all need to start with HR 40, fine. But HR 40 is unnecessary because Duke University already commissioned a study for reparations. We know what we want. We know what we need. We know how much it's going to cost. Let's go ahead and make a reparations package and add on to it as an earmark Medicare for all. You know how many people we're going to put in the corner if they voted, black moderates that we put in the corner if they vote against, because they will vote against Medicare for all with ease because they got Obamacare. But you know how much trouble they'll get into if they vote against reparations? And we put white moderates who will vote against reparations. White progressives who will vote against reparations on the fence also, because, they're not going to vote against Medicare for all. Let's create a package that's more inclusive. We can create more primaries out of problematic people if we force a reparations vote with a Medicare for all earmark in it. I guarantee you guys, we need to start thinking differently about how we approach. We'll build a different coalition. Southern black people who historically vote for moderate Democrats will immediately take note. If any HR 40 type bill, reparations bill, hits the floor, you will immediately see a vast difference in the general public's reaction to politics as usual. I said this before about to our dear brother Bernie about hey, listen, you need to bring up reparations because you're going to put Hillary Clinton in the corner in 2016. That wasn't his approach. But we saw that black issues are the issues that will literally turn this country upside down. And the way that we go about this politically is we go with Rep 1. That's just make reparations. You can even add Medicare for all and college for all in it, but it has to be reparations for indigenous people and black people who suffered under enslavement.
And I think what's interesting about that is, and this is kind of the mindset I think is so powerful we can use in the Democratic Party, is it shames the bad acting Democrats into doing what's right. Like, they can't run away from that. If they do, I mean, Joe Manchin, good luck. Good luck. I don't know, just my thoughts. Arun, what do you think?
I think it's a good plan. I actually think, like, this is part of wielding power, right? Is knowing the alchemy of legislation. I'm always on here being like, Article 2 is the one I know. Article 1 is a mystery to me. And I still admit that. But the people who know how to put two things together to form like a fusion bill that puts everybody in the corner, right? Like, this is wielding power. This is being smart. This is LBJ stuff. This is like, when you're doing a good job, like, and a little space program and a little, and that's how it gets done. This is what Mitch McConnell knows that Chuck Schumer seems not to.
Hopefully. So we have some like major issues right now in terms of growing white supremacy. I think we are all very aware that white supremacy has existed. It's operated in shadows, but there's also folks who are coming of age right now, who have fallen into, different spaces online, whether it's Q or the gaming community, where misogyny and the white supremacy work hand in hand, and it's being facilitated through the Donald Trump presidency. We have a clip of Joe Scarborough. Can we play that clip from MSNBC this morning, where he talks about these platforms and specifically taking on this problem that we're going to be facing in the post-Trump era? Let's play that clip.
I mean, that really depends. If Donald Trump is a cult leader, then his sponsors over the past 4 years have been Facebook and Twitter.
That's right.
And so they take him off of Twitter, take him off of Facebook, and disinformation falls by 73%. Does that have an impact? Yes. Mm-hmm. That has an impact. So the big question is, will Facebook continue to propagate cult leaders on the right? And I'm sure they'll come on the left, too. And if you don't think this isn't going to happen on the left, you are a fool.
Yeah.
You are a fool, because that's the danger of Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump, listen, I know Trumpism stays around for... No. That's not the danger to the Republic. The danger to the Republic is the people on the right, people on the left, people in the center, people who believe in nothing, have seen how easy it is to like break into American democracy and actually put it at risk. And they're thinking, if Donald Trump weren't so stupid, that's what they're thinking. Not me, of course. I would never say that about any president. But they're thinking, if Donald Trump weren't so stupid, he actually could have pulled this off, right? That's what they're thinking. So it is up to you. It is up to me. It is up to Facebook. It is up to Twitter. It is up to all of us to make sure this never happens again. And yes, Joe, you and Mika were responsible because you had him on a lot in 2015. Guilty. Awesome. Does that make you feel better? Okay, fine. Now focus with me, if you will. Because post-2015, Facebook and Twitter and Fox News and a lot of people carried that lie forward.
Going.
Day in and day out. Day in and day out. The consequences devastating.
Man, get out of here. First, if you had had Bernie Sanders on as much as you had Trump on, we wouldn't even had this problem, dummy.
And I was just imagining them talking about Bernie Sanders like it's just an internet cult. That's how he became president. He's going to have us all shipped off to Cuba, like whatever craziness. Like, come on.
Isn't the bridge? What was the one that Chris Matthews got fired for? The one
hanging from lampposts or whatever he said.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we were all on 2016 Bernie. It's a great club that we have here. I remember when I was a surrogate sitting on CNN, and they'd be like, "All right, you're here to talk about Bernie or something else," frankly. And I would sit there, and I knew Bernie was speaking because I was in touch with everybody. He was speaking to the largest crowd ever. And there I was commenting on an empty podium. I mean, it became a cliche, but I spent 30 hours of my life in 2016 covering empty podiums because it was great ratings, the anticipation, zooming in on the crowds. Don't forget that journalists were being attacked in the crowds. this was the culture. We knew what was happening. We know how this works. This isn't a foreign concept. It's not like folks don't understand how fascism grows. It's not like folks don't understand the art of platforming dangerous ideas and dangerous people. They understand because they don't platform us.
Right.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
And
so have somebody, who like commands a huge amount of attention from the mainstream media condemning the only tool that people who don't have that platform has is frankly dangerous, puts a lot of things back where they were when they were worse, like 1980s politics. It's not what anybody wants.
So do you think that this window has shifted and because he's been so outrageous that, Joe Scarborough, a Republican, is now normalized, and that we end up in this Reagan-esque era again? I mean, my only thought is if we didn't have such a vibrant left, if we didn't have the economic crises that we have today, and the blatant racism that we have today, it would be very easy to fall back into like Clintonian, Reagan-esque era politics, where the right wing starts to shove those elements away and partner up with the centrists. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, like the neoliberal end of history fantasy that we thought we were living in.
Yeah.
I think Joe Scarborough is going to be normalized because he's a white man on television.
Yeah,
so what I'm thinking is very basic. It's like it's our time to strike as progressives. And one thing that's going to happen very quickly, and I'm already seeing it happen on the news a little bit already, is let's change subjects to something else that has nothing to do with the plight of Americans or the plight of the people who need help. Let's just switch the narrative. So can we move to China? Can we go back to overseas wars? Can we go back to other? No, y'all, if we put the pressure on them, first, you can't be neoliberal and deal with black issues. You just can't. I'm sorry. You can't. And you can't be neoliberal and deal with poverty. You can't be neoliberal and deal with a COVID vaccine and then not have a legit conversation about Medicare for all. You can't, and access to affordable health care and access to health care for communities that are disadvantaged. The neoliberal policies in the internet don't match because there's too many young people who use it. You can't get on CNN or on the internet and talk about, get on TikTok and talk about how, the banks are going to save us. Right. And those kids are going to be like, yeah, screw you, dude. Listen, how about this right here? We're going to save us. Right. So thank God for the internet, man, because the young folks who are not even progressive, like that's bare minimum. These cats want to ban banks and ban police officers in general, right? We are moderate by asking for defunding of the police, right? So at this point, what I'm just thinking is, look, like Joe Scarboroughs of the world, it's already proven that the mainstream media is having a tough time in the day and age of the internet. Their ratings are going down. Their viewers are going down. Their viewers are dying off. Guess what? Come on over to the Nomiki show. Come on over to Clickbaity. We'll teach you right.
We're the gateway. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, tell your parents to come on over. It's the gateway. We'll loop them in, and then the next thing you know, they're like members of DSA and showing up with black masks, Antifa. But simultaneously, there's this concern about the rising right, and what do we do about it? My guess is Biden's pathway to that is just like hammering it down in whatever ways he can, especially if it's restrictive. I mean, we've seen how the Patriot Act has with this is a very different type of terrorism, but
but you can still sell gadgets. Yeah.
I mean, listen, you see who has been appointed to the transition team, and every single insider from these tech companies who also happens to have national security backgrounds, but this is before the storming of the Capitol. Janet Napolitano, former head of Homeland Security, is now, I think, the chair of the board of Zoom. Hi, nice to see you, Janet. We're on Zoom. But they're going hand in hand right now, and this is before the storming of the Capitol. So other than just trying to tap in more and eliminating privacy, and how else? What other ways are there to combat this rising right? A run, because you know all the answers. What do they do in the EU?
I know the answer to this. I say it all the time, or I like to, and I think it's good. So, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so. but it's about telling stories, different stories, when it's not an election. And this is what the right wing does. They don't wait till there's an election to tell you what's right and what's wrong when you're like, okay, fine, maybe I'll vote for you. Instead, let's actually instill people with a different ethos, with different understanding, give them something to shoot for, give them something to hope for when it's not convenient to win an election. I think a lot of people organizing in Georgia, and there were a lot of different people, and Marcus was one of them, were engaging in this when it wasn't cool, when it wasn't an election, when you couldn't just sort of post about it and be like, guess what I'm doing, and get 1,000 likes for it. This was just the job. It was organizing. So we got to take this more seriously. We have to take a page out of the Black Panther book. DSA, I think, should worry less about elections and more about providing services for people in poor communities.
Interesting.
Let's show people what it's about. And then when it comes time to election time, they're going to show you, because they're going to remember you did for something for them when it didn't matter, when no one was looking.
It's like what they call patronage now.
That goddamn Arun is a genius, man. That's what's up, bro. Yeah, what you just said was dope. I got one more. Since you mentioned the Panthers, let's treat white supremacists like y'all treated the Black Panthers. Let's create a white people COINTELPRO. Let's go out of our way and don't give them any quarter, right? Like if you were in 1,000 feet, because this is what they do in Black neighborhoods. I say this all the time. Yeah, this is what they do in Black neighborhoods. If you were accomplice, first cousin, mother-in-law, you going to jail for a crime that somebody did. Right. Everybody going to jail. So let's just tag that on. Were you looking at the Capitol that day? Well, you know what? You're getting arrested too, right? Let's put the hammer down, because it has to send a message that doing this is illegal, right? Yeah. And I'm an abolitionist by trade, so I don't normally say put folks in jail. But if it makes the playing field equal, maybe folks will see how it feels and have a certain nervousness about walking outside with your rebel flag. Driving down the road with a rebel flag and somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, and spouting your nonsense and conspiracy theories. Let's make conspiracy theories illegal. Let's make Fox News be accountable and all news stations be accountable for telling the truth. I mean, that what do they call it? The Fair Act of what was 1989 when they passed that act. I think it's time for them to reverse that stuff and make people accountable for what the hell they say. If you think Fox News didn't have anything to do with where this country is right now, you're absolutely nuts, right? So it's a little revolutionary, but I want to see that same energy they've been giving us to the white folks that literally stormed the Capitol where they make laws to hurt us.
At the very least, you'll see prison reform happen a lot faster.
That's right.
That would be the only unfortunate side effect if it didn't work.
That's right.
And make sure that all of the officers who arrest them are women and people of color.
That's right.
Make them feel that. Oh God, we're kidding.
Nah, let's drive it in. Let's drive it in.
I want this video to last, Marcus. We're kidding. All right, Arun, I know you got to run. That was I did not set that up.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It happens by accident all the time.
Arun Chaudhary, always a pleasure having you on from Berlin. Get some rest. Hope you're cheering from there. Hope the EU has at least was a breath of relief, a sigh of relief at this point.
They are excited. Yeah, good. They're very excited. Good.
Marcus Ferrell, the best. Hope to see you next week. We'll have you back on. We'll talk about the first week of the presidency and what we've gotten.
If reparations ain't passed by next week, I'm going ham.
You should start a clock, like a counter.
Right.
Make sure to lobby Kamala for that. It's the least you can do. Always a pleasure. We will be right back. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to go through some super chats and be on with our next guest very shortly. So thank you everybody for this special inaugural address special. I guess it was a 2-hour special that we're doing. I am losing my words today. It's been a long day. So we appreciate you all for your patience and for joining us today. We'll be back right after the break. All right, welcome back to the Nomiki Show. You are watching our special inauguration edition of the Nomiki Show. I want to do some super chat shout outs to everybody in the super chat who's been chatting it up. Make sure to keep chatting because this is how this channel grows. You guys know, you know the jam. If you're not already subscribing, what are you waiting for? What does it hurt you? If you subscribe, you get on a little alert. You click that button. You know when we're doing specials. You know when I decide to go live in the middle of the night because I'm feeling something. I'm feeling spicy. That's how you know. All right, Ian Kinzel, thank you for the love, Ian. Oh man, just learned my grandfather has stage 4 cancer, has 3 to 6 months left. Can't see him again because of COVID. Major contrast with relief of Trump's exit. Another reminder that elections and policies matter. I am so sorry to hear about this, Ian. It's just so many people are losing loved ones or have lost loved ones, not just related to COVID, to other health issues during this time, and it's been incredibly hard. I'm so sorry for you and your family, and I hope that he's able to live out his time in the healthiest way possible, and that you get to at least Zoom or see him from a distance through glass. I know a lot of people are doing creative things now, but very sorry. I'm very sorry to hear this, and hopefully we'll be able to push through Medicare for all and vaccinations immediately. Infinite Bomb Dog sends love. Thank you. I saw Mr. Thomas Frank, on Crystal Kyle and Friends and loved his insights. So glad to see him making more appearances. Thank you for having him, Nomiki. He is one of our favorite guests. We have so much fun together. I feel like every single time we talk, we never know where it's going to go, but it's always fun. And he's a wealth of information. Last time he started ripping apart his bookshelf and showing books on screen and opening it up and citing. It was great. I actually ordered a bunch of the books that he pulled out from his bookshelf. Some were very hard to get, actually. So if you haven't seen that one, it's back in the archive. Go check out the latest interview before this show, the last interview with Thomas Frank. I believe it was around the election. Prairie Fire Kowalski from Nebraska, sending the love, says, I can't say this stuff out loud. You guys, this is horrible. Given the Russian hotel golden shower thing, God only knows what petty things these people did on the way out. It's true. Regardless, I'm excited for anarcho-Bidenism when we push him left is best. Oh my God. Okay. Anarcho-Biden. Let's create the memes. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we should start like a pool of what we think that Biden will push forward first. I think there's some various, very obvious things. He has no choice. And I keep saying this over and over because the spiral is just out of control. The economic spiral, folks not having access to healthcare at times of COVID, whether it's affordable or not, they're going broke as a result. They can't treat themselves after they've had COVID. With the effects of COVID, people have lost their jobs. They've lost their healthcare attached to their jobs. They've lost their housing or are going to lose their housing. They haven't been able to pay rent for months and months. And so not only do they have the risk of being evicted very soon, tens of millions of Americans, but they're going to be drowning in the debt from the evictions. Oh, and by the way, if you have student loan debt, you have to deal with that first before you feed yourself, before you pay your rent, before you pay your healthcare costs. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of trouble with the government. This system is designed to exploit the most vulnerable people. And the people doing this have infused themselves into the government. They've literally worked their ways into the government and just made it all the worse. And so if there's anything that comes out of the Biden administration, it is that this is not good even for capitalism. It is only good for the Jeff Bezoses of the world. You think he's not making more money because he doesn't provide benefits or protection for his workers? He made more money than ever. Elon Musk, now the world's richest man, you don't think he made more money because he did not protect his workers, pay them fair wages, give them health care, give them access to health care, proper protection during COVID? If you don't think that, then you're not living in the world that most people are seeing. So we have to deal with these things. I think Biden, he knows this. Listen, Wall Street, big banks have even said that it is time to deal with these crises. You know that when the IMF is like, guys, you got to get your income inequality under control. You have to put some sort of social safety nets in place for things like pandemics or catastrophic presidencies who are completely ignorant to anything that does not surround their little bubble, the West Wing. So when the IMF is like, America, you got to get your capitalism under control, you know that Biden's going to have to do something. And the least he has shown is recognizing that the deficit should not rule. It should not be the North Star that is directing us in the middle of an economic crisis. You have to be dealing with people, making sure that they have jobs, making sure that the debts are eliminated, because there's no paying off this debt. You could increase the minimum wage 16 times in the next year, and it's not going to deal with the debt that people have accumulated due to the outrageous costs of going to college, not graduating always, but going to college, and the housing costs that have gone up in every single city in America. Or, of course, the healthcare costs. You know, have you ever looked at a healthcare bill? If you ever go in a surgery and you look at that bill, like sometimes you go, what is this thing that's cost $4,000? Oh, it's the little plastic part that goes to the oxygen machine. What? It's a racket. It is a racket. And it has to be, there has to be some sort of oversight. There has to be some sort of oversight. All right, continuing with our super chats. Andre Golsher, I hear your audience is predominantly male, and I'm proud to be one of those males. Thank you. Our numbers have gotten better. We're working on this, guys. In the last month, our numbers have improved significantly. So if you know a woman, if you know a progressive woman, I'm guessing most of you do, if you're related to one, if you live with one, if you have friends, if you are one of our women that watch regularly, please tell other women to come over here, because we are trying to change the ecosystem of political YouTube. It is definitely overwhelmingly male. We need to disrupt it. It's not just YouTube, but Twitch as well. So shout outs to all of our friends on Twitch right now. We are new to Twitch. Go check us out on Twitch. And of course on YouTube, you can make sure to click subscribe. All right, Alex Orlowski. Yep, and it can be done through executive order, that's EO, and it should be more than $50,000 per person and continuing for anyone in any situation. Absolutely. He's talking about student debt. We should not be, it's $10,000 isn't going to do anything. It's not going to solve this economic crisis. You have an entire generation or two, you know, between Gen X and Gen Y, millennials. You have millions of Americans who are drowning in student debt. And many of them, and if not most of them, I believe, have not even gotten their degrees that get them their supposed jobs that they're supposed to get out of this. We got to deal with it right away. Luna Diana, hey there, Diana Luna. Coalition between reparations and Medicare for all is the kind of thing I think could become a ruling coalition for a generation. I think there was a typo there. Agreed. I think this is the mastery. This is what LBJ was so good at, was understanding power, understanding how to take one piece of legislation that's extremely popular and to make sure it moves through, use another piece of legislation that Democrats cannot say no to. That is how you understand power and you wield power. And the more that we have progressives elected to office, locally, and of course in Congress and in the Senate, hopefully, we will be able to understand the inside power that's happening in Washington and hopefully be able to work around it, not become beholden to it. Anna Maxa, or if we say it in Greek, Anna Macha, sends her love. Thank you so much, Anna. All right, guys, make sure to jump in that chat. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and join us on Twitch if you are. Hello to everybody on Twitch. We will be right back with Natalie Shure to talk about what else? Joe Biden, the inauguration, and saying bye-bye to Trump. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. I'm Nomiki Konst. We are lucky to be joined by Natalie Shure. She is a writer and head of research for Adam Ruins Everything. She works specifically, she's appeared in The Nation, The Atlantic, BuzzFeed, In These Times, Slate, Jacobin, The Daily Beast, Los Angeles. I'm just going to go through everything. Every single publication in America she has appeared in, and she focuses on history, health, and politics. Natalie, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show, especially for the inauguration.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, all right. Before we get to some of the crux of the speech and what's happened today, I just want to get your overall take, A through F. What do you give the inaugural speech?
I don't think it was too surprising, right? Pretty standard speech. I've never been a huge fan of Biden, but I think it's okay to celebrate the transfer of power and be happy that we are done with the Trump era and celebrate the fact that we have significant challenges under a Biden administration, but very different ones. I think in some pretty substantial ways, some better fights to have. So we can take that as a win and enjoy today.
Biden has made a bunch of promises. He has said that he's going to sign 100 executive actions today. And there's an NBC piece out today that talks through these things. What are you hoping to see he addresses immediately in the next week?
Well, I think that as far as executive action is concerned, I would be very interested in the use of patent busting federal codes. So 1498 and Marching Rights through the Bayh-Dole Act. And those would be used to revoke patents for different drugs so that they can be licensed to generic manufacturers to bring the prices down. I don't think that he has indicated a ton of enthusiasm for using something like that, but I think that would be great to see.
And that's something that can be done by executive action, right?
Yes, that can be done through the executive. That would be nice to see. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to play this clip. Biden is I think for somebody who's been running for president since he was in his early 40s, right? Since 1988, I believe. I don't think he could have ever imagined entering a presidency post-Trump, most unpopular president of all time, in a pandemic where 400,000 Americans have lost their lives, not to mention those who have lost their lives due to the effects of COVID. So he did this speech on COVID. We're going to play a quick clip of it.
As I said to His Eminence as we were waiting to come in, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if there are any angels in heaven, they're all nurses. We know from our family experience what you do, the courage and the pain you absorb for others. So thank you. Thank you. Your Eminence, Cardinal Gregory, and Yolanda Adams, to heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal. It's important to do that as a nation. That's why we're here today. Between sundown and dusk, let us shine the lights in the darkness along the sacred pool of reflection. Remember all whom we lost.
So much of the tenor of the last few days has been about healing America, unity. But this was more. It was mourning. And I think, there are so many Americans across the country who are mourning the loss of their loved ones. But it feels almost like the end of the chapter of the Trump, like mourning the end of the Trump era too. What was your take on his tone and how this decision to have this speech on the Lincoln Memorial?
I think it worked. I think it worked, especially given a lot of people's perception of the Trump administration's treatment of COVID and, the degree to which they, I think, went out of their way to respond in a way that was going to maximize deaths and to downplay it and, not really have a centralized moment like that. And I think that, seeing a display of mourning from the president, not president-elect, the actual president, is meaningful. Especially for people who have lost loved ones to COVID. It's also, I mean, it's, the nodding and winking to nurses talking about how they're angels. Obviously, I'd rather that they had hazard pay and power in their workplace and, adequate PPE and all of that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's something nice about hearing a president suck up to nurses instead of cops. Yeah, I'll take that as a win. And I think that people also connect with Biden very much, like very deeply when it comes to grief in particular, right? Like, I think that what he's been through in his personal life, the family members that he's lost, a lot of people cite that as being, what they connect with him on, or, what really humanizes him for them. I'm not saying that he was doing that consciously, but I think that, providing comfort to people who have gone through immense sorrow is where he really shines, and where people, feel like he's on their side, and that's not a bad side to show the first day of his presidency.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think a lot of progressives have complained about with neoliberal leadership in the last several decades, really, is that, I feel you, I see you, I hear you. It's what Bill Clinton, as much as he had bad policies, he was able to do so effectively. And, for those who don't know, Joe Biden lost his family right before he was sworn in as senator. He lost his wife at the time, and I believe 2 children, if I'm correct, or 1 child. And his son, who later died, Beau Biden, was in the hospital while he was being sworn in for U.S. senator. He was next to this hospital bed, mourning just, everything in his life. And then, of course, more recently, Beau Biden, his eldest son, died of a brain tumor, which is, I mean, and not to mention that Joe Biden himself, I don't think a lot of people know, in '88, when he was running for president, he also had an aneurysm and almost faced death himself. So it's interesting how personal experiences, I just hope that helps him. He can look at that as a reference point for his policies that he has absolute control over right now in passing that could save people's lives. Maybe that will be the reference point. All right. Speaking of that, Representative Dan Crenshaw, the future of the Republican Party, guys, also known for his Avengers clips, he was just on Fox News talking about how he wants Biden to act with a sense of humility after we just discussed this. Let's play that clip.
Look, I want to hear some action behind all this talk of unity, especially from Biden. Okay, so I want Biden to act with a sense of humility and acknowledge. Look, I want to hear some action behind.
Just play it on repeat all day long. I mean, the freaking nerve. Did he ever say this about Trump? Like, is this just a tactic? Sorry, go ahead, Natalie.
No, I mean, yeah, you just watch it with your jaw on the floor.
I mean, and it actually leads to something else, which is Biden, the Obama administration. If you think back to 2009, you have this 100 days. He didn't have the 100 days. They went immediately after him. The Republicans, we're not talking about the Trump Republicans, that was later. They went after him immediately. The institutional mainstream Republicans did not give him space. They did not give him 100 days, a grace period, anything. They went all in. And so to hear that from Dan Crenshaw, not Donald Trump, who would undoubtedly go on a world tour on OAN, prop up all of his family members, to just attack Biden and take credit for every achievement he accomplishes. He's already said he's going to do that. Not only will he be dealing with that, but he's going to be dealing with Dan Crenshaw right now, who is going to make a name for himself by attacking Biden in the middle of this crisis.
Well, not to mention that, Biden's entire pitch all along has been, I love Republicans. I'm going to work with Republicans. Watch me be a bipartisan hero. And every chance he's gotten, he's, slapped the left and talked about how he's going to unify and play to the center. Right. The idea that that's not enough for them is absurd. I mean, they are playing their hand as much as they can, acting like, they deserve some consideration too. And in fact, consideration is all they've gotten all along this whole time. I mean, they ought to be thrilled with Biden.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because Bernie Sanders came out, or I should call him Chairman Sanders. Let's make that very clear. Chairman of the Budget Committee. It's almost too good to be true. I'm like, wait, how did they let this happen? I can't remember. Like, am I missing something? Is there fine print? But Chairman Sanders, Senator Sanders, came out talking about how he's not actually opposed to working with Republicans. I mean, he's a senator. You sometimes have to do these things. Let's play that clip.
I have no problem with reaching out to Republicans. I would prefer to do it that way. But if we hear very early on that Republicans do not want to act in a way that meets the needs of working people in this country or the middle class, sorry, we're going to do it alone. The truth of the matter is that Republicans used budget reconciliation over the years to provide massive tax breaks to the rich, to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to use it to protect the working families and the middle class of this country.
So what I love about that is, you know, he's very clear that we need to have bipartisanship at certain moments, just because that's the system that is, it's designed to work that way. But now Democrats are in control, right? And I'm hoping that means that we take on the filibuster, and so that Democrats can finally push through real legislation, and maybe Bernie will be willing to take on Manchin, or maybe Schumer will be able to pressure Manchin to act like a Democrat. I'm not sure. It seems like something's happening. Some sort of repositioning is happening right now. But what a breath of fresh air hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I should rephrase. I don't think that working with Republicans is necessarily in itself the problem. You know, I'm not making a case for party loyalty so much as, you know, ideological loyalty. And Bernie, I think, has been particularly adept at that. You know, like just last month, he was able to team up with Holly on the $2,000 checks. We'll see, you know, how that goes. Last year, he was also working with some people from the Republican caucus on Yemen, trying to push that forward. And, you know, that's just a, you know, innovative coalition building. Whereas I think, right, you know, the problem comes when you are going toward the center, looking to, you know, throw out important parts of your political program, which, right, you know, I think Biden is very capable of doing and has signified a willingness to do. I mean, I think that he is gunning for, you know, centrist political compromise as opposed to finding unusual common ground.
But he doesn't need to. I mean, that's right now, there's a moment in 100 days where he can make a decision as a former senator, as somebody who hopefully will be channeling some form of LBJ in the presidency, to say, all right, enough with the filibuster. We're going to fight till the end so that he's able to achieve all that he needs to achieve and can achieve outside of the executive branch, so that his legacy is stronger, so that Kamala Harris has something to champion and run on when she decides to run for president, so that this country does not continue to spiral into what's happening right now, which is an embarrassment to the world, but it's spreading globally. You know, fascism light or fascism heavy or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, I'm from the perspective that I know that's ingrained in him. He's of that era, but I don't really think he has a choice. Like, he has to start playing hardball. Maybe. I don't know. But you know who is playing hardball is and has no sense of loyalty is Senator Lindsey Graham. Might you guys recall that in 2016 during the primary, he was the comic relief of the 2016 primary. He was in the kids' table debate, just ripping Trump to shreds, did not care, thought that he had all this leverage. You know, folks were just like waiting for him to get into the big kids table debate, because there were two debates, if you recall. There were so many candidates. He didn't make it, but now he's never seems to be reading the room or the winds. I'm not really sure. So he's been going after Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and says Republicans have to realize that Trump is the strongest voice in the party. Do we have that clip? So it's the sound's off. We're going to try it one more time with sound.
He's a solid conservative, but I'm hoping that he will make an announcement soon saying that impeachment under these circumstances is unwise and unconstitutional. If this party is going to survive, we got to realize that Donald Trump had a consequential presidency for conservatives, that he's going to be the strongest voice in the party. I realize that, and I appreciate that. And the test for President Trump is, will he help us in 2022 take back the House and the Senate? Because without his help, we cannot take back the House and the Senate. With his help, I think we can.
Existential crisis. My thoughts are McConnell wants to have control over the Senate and keep the party that he knows and can like read and control together. But Lindsey Graham and they're not reading the same memo. I don't know. The Overton window is clearly, there's something happening. It's shifting a bit. And everyone, is including the Democratic Party, we're shifting. So the ecosystem is shifting. We have a demographic, there is a demographic crisis for the Republican Party. Is the Republican Party really alive at this point? I guess that's the real question, because it seems like if they don't have a base that they used to have and they're leaning on the Trump base, which who knows if that version of the Trump base is as strong. I mean, do you think that there is a future for the Republican Party?
Well, so yeah, my read of the Republican Party is and has always been it is a wish fulfillment vehicle for capital, right? That is what the party exists to do. It's there to deliver massive tax breaks, to serve the Kochs and the Mercers, and that's very unpopular, unsurprisingly, right? Like unfettered oligarchy is very unpopular. There's a very small base for it. So what do? They go in hard on culture war stuff. So, Reagan did this with the Bible Belt. That's when you see the rise of the Christian right. I think that's when abortion became the massive political football that it is. More recently, even more concerningly, I think that explains why the alt-right and why white supremacists, white nationalists have more of a seat at the table and are taken more seriously, or at least, elements of the Republican Party are, less willing to buck them or to, confront them directly. And it's because, Fox News and different elements of the party, different elements of this coalition are able to whip up rage and use it for votes for oligarchy. So, I think that they will keep churning out that sort of fodder. They will keep seeing how far they can get with this strategy of, whipping people into a frenzy over this and that. And I think that, for now, in terms of the numbers, that will include dog whistle racism. That will include pissing your audience off about, something that someone did at some college, some little protest at Oberlin that they can get super frothing mad about. I think that's the game. And so what Graham is saying makes total sense to me, that, there is a sizable plurality of people who vote for the Republicans, who are, all in on Trump. He's their avatar. They're big fans of him. And, if those people walked away from the Republican Party completely, I don't think they'd necessarily walk to the Democrats. I think a lot of them would maybe be in danger of becoming non-voters. But then there goes their coalition. So, they're facing a very fundamental problem right now. I hope they can't solve it. I think that the Republican Party is, completely disgusting. So I hope that there's no way out of that. But I think that they will keep trying to get more milk out of that coconut.
And well said. And simultaneously, I think what's interesting is due to the events of 2 weeks ago, the insurrection, there are more and more Republicans who are disgusted with those actions and want to be pulled away from that crew of people. So I guess the question is, what is the plurality that is needed that does not include the Trump coalition? And my big question is, what is Steve Bannon doing next? Because I'm going to guess newly pardoned Steve Bannon is a central figure in the future of the Republican Party, and he's open for hire. I'm not praising that. I'm just making it clear, watch him closely. Because there is a right-wing populist coalition. They talked about this Patriot Party, whether or not a third party is the option. If anything, it's a leverage point to make sure that this version of the Republican Party still exists in the Republican Party. We'll see. Natalie Shure, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Inauguration Day. Normally we'd be in Washington and covered in many coats and scarves and little heaters everywhere because it's usually a very cold day.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And, here's to 4 years of being frustrated with Biden instead of being frustrated with Trump.
Yes, exactly. And not being frustrated with the Democratic Party primary process, because I feel like that's been our big opponent. Like we've just been fighting within the confines of the DNC, not like democracy. Whole different set of rules. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you.
All right, we have some super chats we want to go through here. We have Omi C. Thanks for the love. And Ian Kinzel is back saying, this super chat is intended as a market incentive to keep bringing Natalie Shure on the show. Oh, she missed that. Sometimes we got to work within the system, right? And Ganglemit. Donnie versus Mitch. I'd cheer for Donnie. Maximize division for the GOP. Interesting take. All right. Well, that was an amazing show, guys. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks to everybody on Twitch. If you're on Twitch, go check us out. Thank you to everybody who rated our channel on Twitch. We so grateful. I'm learning Twitch. I am my resolution for this new presidency is to learn one game, and I'm going to go with Halo because I feel like that's the one that probably suits me the most. And I will play it on Twitch. I just need a little bit of time, but I promise you I will. And I know our team really wants me to. The real question is, will I be addicted? That's the real question. So I'm hoping I don't get addicted to Twitch or to gaming. And I don't want to give Hassan Piker a run for his money. I mean, that's really what this is all about. Right, guys? All right. We will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place, normal schedule, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Nomiki Show. Before you jump out, make sure to smash that like button if you're on YouTube. And thank you to everybody. And we will see you tomorrow. Be well and solidarity.